The new financial year might bring a few shocks for many small businesses as they come to terms with new regulations and wage rises. A reduction in awards from 4,000 mainly state-based ones to 122 federal ones was supposed to make the system simpler. But there are fears it will add to the wages bill at a time margins are already being squeezed. Michael Troy reports.
The lunchtime rush at Garfish restaurant in Sydney's north might appear like business as usual, but behind the scenes there's a lot of confusion about the new Industrial Relations Awards as penalty rates and loadings change.
Businesses paying more for employees doing exactly the same amount of work, working the same roster as last week to this week.
It's an enormous change. And it's an enormous change for our businesses because we're moving from what was a state-based system fundamentally through into a federal system. So not only are all the wage rates changing, but the whole jurisdiction is changing.
John Hart speaks on behalf of tens of thousands of restaurant and cafe owners and says on the 10th anniversary of the GST, now there's a new headache.
Well, the bookworkers in our businesses are usually the owners, so they do this between the midnight and dawn shift, basically, and that's what they have to do in a small business.
He estimates that up to 70% of businesses may not even be aware of their new obligations.
We're very keen to get the word out there, and there's still a lot of businesses that I think are putting their head in the sand.
Ignorance of the new laws is no excuse for small businesses not complying. Workplace inspectors will be out in force, prompting calls for leniency. Employers face fines of up to $33,000 for each breach.
Prosecution and enforcement and a heavy hand of regulators should be a last resort for people who are clearly wanting to do the wrong thing. Most employers believe in fairness, want to do the right thing, and the government regulator needs to make sure that they are very understanding that employers are going to find some real challenge in this transition.
Peter Anderson from the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the government has broken its promise to bring in the changes at no cost to employers, and the timing is very poor.
We know there's a two-speed economic recovery at work here in Australia. A lot of the small service industries, retail, cafes, restaurants, shops, they're in the slow lane of a two-speed recovery, yet they're the ones who are particularly going to feel the pinch when the next payroll has to be made up.
Adding to the signs that growth is slowing, a drop in the Australian Performance of Manufacturing Index. Figures for June fell 3.4 to 52.9, just above the level indicating growth. While this still shows expansion, it's the first time in 6 months that the figure has dropped.
Clearly the pace of growth is easing on the back of pretty weak new orders and quite weak production.
Heather Ridout from the Australian Industry Group says we haven't made up the ground lost during the global financial crisis, and Europe's debt woes are a big concern.
Australia can run but it can't hide and from these sorts of developments. But the great thing is we're in Asia, and 3/4 of our exports over the last year or so have gone there.
While manufacturers can focus on the Asian market, the restaurant trade is in the front line of a downturn.
What we're seeing is a slowdown, and the reason we're seeing that, I think, is because interest rates are starting to come up, and that's really what affects discretionary spend.
Combined with the regulatory changes, it could spell a much leaner tax year ahead for many small businesses.